Now, do you really want to spend $400+ on a motherboard?
No.
Well, there are cheaper options available. This is not the Z, this is the second tier down B860i and mini ITX board. But the thing is, it actually offers features for 90+% of the people. So why would you even want to go with a Z series motherboard where this offers basically everything? But what is the basically everything? Well, that's why you're here. Let's check it out. Licensing Windows is cheap and easy with whokeys.com, and if you use the code TN20, you get an extra discount. Complete the purchase, copy the key, and paste it to the activation settings. And you're all done. Also, check out their Microsoft Office 19 license and use the same code TN20 for the extra discount. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below. Front panel extension cable. Interestingly, AMD version didn't have that. Quick latch for the M.2. USB 2.0 splitter, standoff, and some screws for M.2. Wi-Fi antenna, zip ties, 2 SATA cables, another screw, and the metal latch. I am actually not sure what this is for. And then a key ring from ROG and a nice manual on the bottom. Now, before we take a look at this, don't get confused with the AMD's B850 version. This is B860, which is Intel, and B850 is AMD's version. This is only Intel socket, not AMD socket. A bit confusing in terms of the name, but if you want to check out the AMD version of this board, go check it out. I've already got a video out there about this. There's a nice protection underneath. Whoa, would you look at that? Now, I've just checked out AMD's version of the B series of Strix motherboards, and interestingly, the Intel one feels higher quality, even though pricing wise, the AMD one seems more expensive, if I'm not mistaken, than the Intel one. Go check out the latest pricing in the video description below. So we can see Strix theme in here for the gaming theme, ROG, it's quite evident. But there is a heat pipe that runs over the power delivery in there and then on the bottom. On AMD's side, there was no heat sinks on the top. They were all kind of on the side, but this side was a little bit bulkier. Intel socket there for a Core Ultra 200S series and the next generation as well. But let's take a look at some of the headers then. I'm going to turn the motherboard this way. We've got the 8-pin EPS CPU power connector there, and then another power connector for 24-pin is there. They're pretty standard on all of the ITX boards. Then we've got 3 chassis headers. Interestingly, AMD had 4. This is 3. Now, I don't know if these are 24 watts or 12 watts in terms of full power, 1 amp or 2 amperes, since there's nothing on the quick start guide and manuals are not up there yet online, so we don't know. I'm assuming it's 24, but I don't know. 2 5-volt ARGB headers. Interestingly, you've got a physical start button here. Then moving on over here, the front panel headers are next to the 24-pin, very much in here, not somewhere down there. Interesting location. Front panel USB Type-C, that is 10 gigabits in speed. USB Type-A front panel, that is 5 gigabits in speed. And then we've got 4 SATA ports in there. Then moving just above there, over the graphics card slot, we've got USB 2.0 header. We've got 1 temperature sensor just down there. And finally, the front panel audio just there. We've got these 2 DIMM slots, and since it's Intel platform, it's also supporting the CU DIMMs, and they're saying that it supports DIMMs up to 9,000 megahertz, something around there. Interesting, it looks like the number is lower on the B series motherboards than on the Z series. The Z890 will give you 9,200, but this is 9,000. So interesting note there that if you want the latest and fastest RAM speed, then the Z platform will be a better option for you. In terms of expansion slots and M.2 slots, obviously we've got the PCIe expansion slot here, 16 lanes, PCIe Gen 5, all fully supported there. So anything you're going to put there, it's going to be pretty interesting. Then there's 2 M.2 slots, one on the top front in there, and then one on the bottom side, just over here. And when looking at this panel here, on the bottom side, there is a lot more effort put into here than on the AMD's B850 motherboards. There is actually a part back panel, which is really, really nice because there's so many tiny little SMDs and capacitors on the motherboard, and it's so easy to chip them, especially in this ITX form factor. When you're putting them in the tiny case, you can slide it around, and then right next to the screws, look how close there's SMDs on this screw over there. You can just shave them off, but this at least protects a little bit of that, which I'm a big fan of. And I've shaved some of these SMDs off on Micro ATX. Don't do that. But the M.2 slots, the one on the back here is PCIe Gen 4 X4 slot, and then the one in the front is PCIe Gen 5 X4 slot. The back goes through the chipset, and then the front goes directly to the CPU. Let's take a look underneath this heatsink as well. So there's 3 screws we have to undo now. Oh, and the screw comes off. Don't like that. Okay, it's a beefy heatsink on the top there, and we've got a bit of heatsink on the bottom as well. So this does support cooling for PCIe Gen 5, but underneath this guy is also the chipset. So you can see the little corner in there, which is blue. So the chipset B860 goes underneath there, which this also cools down. So it also heats the M.2 SSD up for you, especially if it's PCIe Gen 5. So make sure you've got adequate cooling. Interestingly, the AMD B series version had an active cooling for the VRMs. Not on this one. It's all passive, which means this is going to be a lot quieter. This is a beefy heatsink there though. Let's take a look at the I/O of this motherboard. We've got 2 video outputs, DisplayPort and HDMI port. Then we've got a Thunderbolt 4 port right there. Interestingly, not Thunderbolt 5, but Thunderbolt 4. We've got some 5 gigabits USB Type A ports, 3 of them, the blue ones, and 2 USB 2.0 headers that are black, 2.5 gigabit LAN, clear CMOS button. We've got these Wi-Fi antennas, Wi-Fi 7, which is super fast, and this is the quick release that's new on the new motherboards. We don't have the screw-on ones anymore. We've got 20 gigabits USB Type-C port, which is USB 3.2 Gen 2 X2 slot, and finally 1 USB Type-A 10 gigabits USB port. Optical out, line in, and mic in. It's a very fancy I/O actually. When comparing it to the AMD, we've got Thunderbolt and we've got 20 gigabits USB Type-C. That is a huge benefit actually, because if I remember correctly, the previous version, the B series of Intel's B860 motherboards, didn't have Thunderbolt on the back, but now we do have Thunderbolt 4 and a fast USB Type-C as well, so you can get video output. Thunderbolt 4, I'm liking this a lot because you can connect all sorts of extensions to the Thunderbolt port, and compared to the AMD, we're getting a little bit of a better option, although AMD's secondary M.2 slot was PCIe 5.0. Now, in terms of other features, there's a lot of things going on in BIOS and software that ASUS has done here as well. We've got AI cooling, so basically it just uses AI to get the maximum out of your CPU. I'm not sure how much of this is AI or just reading the sensors and making some calculated decisions on how much cooling you need and how fast the cooler needs to run, whether in AIO or the fan speeds to keep the CPU cooled down, which is pretty cool, keeps it efficient. And if you don't need as much, just turn it down and we're saving electricity, which is nice. Then the secondary thing is AI overclocking to actually extract as much juice out of your CPU as possible. Sometimes you might get a good chip and you can get a little bit more performance. Then it's giving you it. Overclocking for creators. Is it really stable? Not sure. We've got the ASUS AI networking too, which means that you can actually get some really nice connections if you're using ASUS routers. It finds the best channel to use Wi-Fi 7 to your router and get the optimal connection, as well as some of the Wi-Fi antenna directions. There's a software that comes with the motherboard, so you can actually put your Wi-Fi antenna on your PC or wherever you're going to put it and make sure that it's facing the right way for the optimal and best signal strength and all sorts of things. So BIOS is a little bit more packed, and I love the Q dashboard, which basically means that you get this kind of in BIOS, so you can click on the different headers and IO and see, okay, what does this do? What does this do? Am I connected to the right speeds port or so on? It's really, really cool. So improvements have been made, but if you want to save some money and build a good creative PC or whatever PC you're using for, this is a great, more budget alternative for the Z series, and it still offers pretty much everything you need. Is there something that is missing from this motherboard? Let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to check this out in the video description. By the way, if I can help you and you want to reach out, I always get back to my direct messages within 24 hours. Links below.